to amend, this is a staff proposal. Sorry, it's been really busy and my head is just getting to this meeting, so I apologize. So you already, at the last meeting, you saw the request for the bar distance to be reduced, space to space. Distance, bar to bar. You've seen two. You've seen residential to bar, and then you've also seen bar to bar. We would like to propose an amendment to our definition of bar. It's very broad in our code, so we would actually like to limit that to bars that have full food menus. And then the age 21 is typical of a bar definition in state code. And then we would like to add tavern as a separate definition. So in the current code, it's part of the definition for bar. However, we would like to add it as a separate definition and then propose that we don't allow these. The feedback that we got is that there is a comfort level in allowing things like sports bars that have a full food menu, but not necessarily in taverns that mainly are alcohol and don't really have a full food menu. And so in addition to the amendment to the definitions, there's an amendment to the use table, and by having it blank, it means it's not allowed in any zone. And we'll turn the time over to you to discuss that proposal.
Thank you, Director Carroll. Would be happy to entertain comments or questions from members of the commission. Commissioner Mangum, please.
So if I understand correctly, we're saying there's no taverns allowed in Saratoga Springs. One of the things that caught my eyes in the tavern section, it says that nobody under 21 may be employed. So are we allowing 18 to 21-year-old to serve alcohol at the bar?
I actually don't know the answer that. We base these off of state code definitions, and so there must be a distinction there. So I don't know the answer to whether or not if you're under 21, if you can work at the bar. I would assume that they wouldn't prefer that because you can't serve alcohol if you're 21. You can serve food though, so perhaps that's why there's a difference.
Thank you.
You have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's my understanding, and this is regulated by state code, but that you would not be able to serve alcohol unless you were 21. But otherwise, the alcohol regulations are done through the state.
That makes sense.
Any additional questions, Commissioner Mangum?
No, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Kilgore.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to...
Hey, sorry, Commissioner Hill, it's Commissioner Kilgore, sorry. Who's next? He beat you to the button.
Good.
Okay, so I guess these are state definitions, but it just really confuses me because I've always understood bar as a place that serves alcohol and maybe like food, whereas a tavern serves both alcohol and food. That's just the I mean, I even asked my wife, I go, what do you think of it as a tavern? She goes, a sit-down place where they serve alcohol and food.
Oh.
That's just the way I understood it. Maybe because she's from Oregon, I'm from California, and we both lived in Germany. I don't know if that's the reason why, but the state says that bars are places where they serve food, and I mean, bar, even bar, the idea of a bar is a place where they serve the alcohol. And it's funny that an establishment that also serves food is a bar, whereas a place where you sit down and eat and drink and possibly drink is that I would think that's a tavern, like an inn. And so there are restaurants that are called, they just have the name tavern, not necessarily that fits with the definition, but you're saying that, so these are state defined.
We did base these off of state definitions. And so when a company goes to get a license for either a bar or a tavern, they are separate with the state, and this is in coordination with the state definitions.
So if an establishment, they have the name tavern in there, just their name, but they do serve food and alcohol, then would they be allowed in Saratoga Springs, even though they're called a tavern? They call themselves a tavern, but they actually serve food, then it would be okay.
If they're
That's a bar.
right, if they're meeting the definition, then that would be correct.
Okay, because that's the kind of place that I wish we don't ban, you know, I mean, as far as my idea of what a tavern is. But if we are okay with the name tavern, but as long as they functionally do what the says, I guess that'd be all right then. Okay. And then I had the same question about the employment, because the tavern definition explicitly says, no, a 21-year-old cannot be employed, whereas the bar one doesn't. But I guess it makes sense. You can't serve, but you could still be employed there, I suppose.
And I think the reason is that where the tavern is an alcohol, you know, like food isn't one of their main offerings. It's more like a secondary offering, or you might have just some snacks or some bar food, you know, some cheese fries or something, but not a full menu. Where when you have a full menu, and if you're not the one serving the alcohol, you can still serve the food.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the tavern thing then. So right now, I was told by my nephew who lives in Brooklyn, and he also is an alcohol distributor. And he said that right now it's really popular on the East Coast is a lot of cocktail places. So they're smaller establishments, and they serve mainly like really outlandishly expensive cocktails, but they also serve tapas, you know, tapas type of food. So they're bars, and they have mostly like stools that you sit on, not necessarily like real, you know, booths or seating like a restaurant. But they do serve tapas, and from the amount of food that they do provide, it could be 50-50 as far as, you know, what they're serving. So would that then be not allowed? Because even though it's a bar, it is mostly alcohol and, you know, like just tapas type of appetizer type of food.
It's hard for me to know the answer to that. I think if we do have something like that come through, we would have to look really closely at which of these categories it's falling under. And they would, you know, it'd be on them to let us know which category they're falling under. If they have, the state code has percentages, what percentage of your sales are alcohol versus food, and that's how they describe these things for those getting a bar license versus a tavern license. There's a few other definitions in state code that we didn't add. However, as our city grows, evolves, we certainly look at, you know, if we got a use like that, we could certainly evaluate, does it fit in the code, or would we need something else changed in the code?
Yeah, I mean, I often bring examples from elsewhere, but a lot of times, you know, whatever trend is happening over there eventually comes this way, and that's why just wondering if we're just not setting ourselves up. But I guess I have to just get away from the name of the establishment as opposed to what they're actually doing.
Right.
Whether it fits.
Right, the way that this is proposed today, it would be, whether or not they have a full food menu.
Okay. And then why are we banning taverns? What's the reason for that?
This is based on feedback that we got at the city council meeting with some concerns on the definition that's in the code. The feedback that we got was that, you know, we're okay with places like sports bars that do have a food menu, but the feedback we got is we're not necessarily okay with the definition where it included taverns and nightclubs and private clubs. And so our the proposal here is to clean that up and to not allow taverns. Certainly, you know, up to your recommendation and then the city council's decision whether or not you want to do that.
I'm just trying to understand what the point is. I mean, because, you know, if a person goes to a bar and, you know, there's food served, but they decide not to eat anything, they're just simply drinking. I mean, is it behavior that we're worried about, or is it the establishment? And I don't understand what the point of the establishment is, especially if they serve like fever foods and stuff.
Sure.
There's still a kitchen, you know, there's still a menu. It's just smaller stuff, as opposed to, it's like eating appetizers instead of eating an entree. So I'm not understanding, is it the establishment that we have a problem with, or is it the behavior? Because the behavior can still be done at a bar, at the definition of the bar, where there's a restaurant. You know what I mean? So I'm just trying to understand what it is, because how do we, and what kind of alternative, or what kind of venues do we want to have and not want to have? And I want to understand why we don't want that.
That's great for the discussion. I actually am not going to try to answer that, just because I think that that's a personal opinion and that everybody can have a different opinion on that. And I am not the expert on everybody's thoughts behind, preferring a bar over a tavern, or preferring a place that serves food in addition to alcohol. I don't know that I'm the one to answer what everybody's individual thoughts on that, but I do think it's great discussion.
That's what I figured. Does the state ban taverns?
No, they do not.
So it's just Saratoga Springs?
Right. If that is approved the way it's written, that would mean that that's the preference of, the deciding body at the time it gets approved, right?
All right.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore, for your good questions. Commissioner Hill.
Chair, thank you. I think my questions have been asked and answered. Just a comment that I have is I'll continue to reiterate how appropriate I think is for us to clean up our code and to give more definitions so that there's no ambiguity there, even though we may not understand all the things that are happening, as Ken had asked. I just think it's a good thing to have less ambiguity in our code and more direction, and I appreciate how your department is truly trying to take that on, I think, under the direction of City Council. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. We'll go to Commissioner Sprosty Burns next.
Okay, so on the 2024 Utah Department of Alcoholic Beverages Services, they list the definition of a tavern as tavern licenses are limited to a quota formulated by the population of the state. Taverns are defined as beer bars, parlors, lounges, I can't pronounce that word, and nightclubs. Okay, well, if you want to know.
Cabaret.
Okay.
You just wanted me to say that on record.
I did.
It's cool.
I was, yeah. So I think that we've got some issues here with some of the verbiage.
And ours can be more strict than the state definition. So city code can be more strict than state code.
But we have in our city code a tavern, we don't have anything, a tavern by the state definition is one that just sells beer, right? And so under here, on our code, it kind of implies that they can sell other alcohol, which it would not be allowable under state code. I think we need to look at this a little bit further is where I'm at on it. Would this change of definition have any impact on the petitioner that was here at the last meeting?
No, it does not. So what this does is so the other code amendment on the spacing hasn't gone through City Council yet. The distance from residential to bar got approved by City Council. That one, we're trying to have this definition go to City Council at the same time as that request because of the City Council's concerns about the other uses listed in the definition, such as tavern, nightclub, private club, and similar facilities. And so we wanted, and the council, and it's hard because it's in discussion, it's not on the vote, right? But if the council were to approve the bar-to-bar distance spacing, they had concerns with the list of uses in this definition. And so we're trying to clean that up to address those concerns that were expressed.
Okay. Are there other establishments that are just not allowed in Saratoga?
Yes. Well, I don't know what they all are, but yes. So we do have on our youth table, we have a few uses that just at least, and I can pull it up, we have at least one use that we have the same, that we have done the same way where we've described that use and then it's just blank, meaning you can't have it in any zones. So this would not be the only use that we've done that with.
Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sprosty Burns. We'll go to Commissioner Mann next.
Thank you. I just have a few questions. Just out of curiosity, what is the percentage of food versus alcohol served allowable?
Oh, I need to pull up state code. It's close to 50%.
Okay. And then what, and I would assume that this is pretty common, what if that percentage fluctuates with the establishment from quarter to quarter, month to month, or year to year? And how is that monitored with current bar establishments to maintain code compliance?
All of that is monitored by the state license, not by the city.
Okay, perfect. And then what constitutes a full menu versus a limited menu?
More than appetizers, so an actual meal.
Gotcha, okay. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mann. I also saw Commissioner Wilden. Do you feel your questions got answered? Commissioner Mangum, the same. You withdrew.
Actually, I could make one comment. It seems like, and I'm all for free choice. I don't drink, but I'm all for free choice. It seems like we're trying to use the word tavern to limit specific actions, and maybe it would be a little better to just define what those specific things are that we're trying to not allow in Saratoga Springs with instead of just the word tavern. I wonder, what is it that we're specifically trying to ban by saying the word tavern? Is it?
You've been very politically correct, Director Carroll. Do you want to try to answer any of that, or? you're
I
going to-
do think it's best for the commission to discuss this, and if you would like to make a recommendation different than staff's, you're certainly welcome to do so.
All right, that got the commission fired up. So here we go. Commissioner Kilgore.
Yeah, so I think that was why I asked, what is it that we're trying to regulate? Is it the behavior or is it the establishment? So if, okay, I think we talked about this last time or the last meeting where I said, well, I don't drink, but I've had a lot of good times at bars, or at taverns or wherever. And so it's not a matter of whether I drink or not, but it's just allowing other people to. And it's not that, obviously that's not the point because we are allowing bars. But then the question is, okay, so if a place serves entrees, or no, let's say a place serves just appetizers. If I go and I don't drink, but I eat appetizers, that's my whole meal, And so as far as food goes, I'm getting all the nourishment or whatever it is that I'm getting, and I'm not drinking. So if that's the case, then why are we banning those, but allowing, as long as they serve an entree, then it's okay, even though a person might go and just eat appetizers, not any entrees. So I just don't understand what the point is. Because it seems like as far as behaviors go, whether you just eat appetizers or you eat an entree or you just drink at a place that serves food or you don't drink, it just doesn't seem to matter. And then I don't know why this comes following our discussion about distance, because the discussion that we had last week or last meeting, we even talked about why do we even have a 1,000 foot or half a mile or 1,000 foot? Why not 500 feet? Why not, whatever else? It doesn't seem to matter. So how does that then all of a sudden now say that, well, we don't want places that only serve alcohol and appetizers? I just don't understand the logic. So I guess we could discuss it, but if there's a push for that from the city council, we don't understand what they're pushing. Other than saying, okay, we don't want establishments that serve alcohol and appetizers. Why? Because again, people are going to eat just appetizers at a full restaurant. Anyway, so I just don't really get that. And since the state doesn't ban it, again, I just don't see why we need to here without more clarification. So.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. I knew I'd get you to say something. Commissioner Wilden, here you go.
Thank you. So I'm going to step on a landmine here, and we'll see what happens. So, when I look at the general plan, I look at a healthy and family-friendly neighborhoods. And there seems to be potentially, again, I'm a little naive here, but a tipping point where you go from a restaurant or a bar that serves food and alcohol to where you then tip over to an environment where that's not going to be family-friendly. And so I think I'm guessing that's probably what the city council is looking at, is trying to define that tipping point. Having experience, have worked in restaurants with alcohol, and also having to have worked in bars, I've seen that tipping point, and that's why I think it's really valuable to be concerned about that tipping point. So this may not be ideal, but I'm in favor of it because it's trying to balance it. That's just my thoughts.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilden. Appreciate that. Commissioner Mann, we'll go back to you.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that in my experience with both bars and taverns and restaurant establishments, tavern-style establishments typically stay open much later than establishments that serve food. So perhaps part of the problem would come from, we have rowdy people who may have been drinking, coming home on our roads, driving late at night, potentially causing a ruckus and whatever else may ensue. I think that it's probably pretty dependent on the city and the people of the city and what they prefer. I've lived in Salt Lake City and there's taverns all over the place and people love that. I don't know whether or not Saratoga is that city. That's all for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Mann. Commissioner Kilgore.
And then in those kinds of particular situations, I would also submit that maybe what we do is just like we do with light ordinances and such, that we have a business open hour ordinance. That way, we're not discriminating against a particular type of establishment just because they serve appetizers and not entrees. That's what I don't understand. I mean, because you can be rowdy drinking beer that you bought at a convenience store. You could be rowdy going to a restaurant, a full-on family-friendly restaurant that only serves wine, or that serves wine, and that's all you drink. So I don't see how focusing on a particular establishment that serves alcohol, but instead of a steak serves chicken wings or something like that. Why is that going to make it more family-friendly or control someone's rowdiness? I just feel like maybe it's better, especially if the point is that they're open later. Well, then we'll just say that restaurants have to close by a certain hour, just like we do with light ordinances and such. But anyway, again, that's my point. I don't really see, maybe it's just American behavior, maybe it's just Utah behavior, but there's plenty of places where they have just limited food menus, and yet the people who go to those places don't act any more rowdy than any place else. In fact, it's usually the venue, like a sport, it's the activity like a sports activity that causes that kind of behavior usually. So, and we have plenty of that here. So I don't know. It's just it doesn't seem logical to me that banning a particular type of establishment that we don't ban anywhere else in the state. Well, maybe we do ban it elsewhere, but at least it's not required in the state code that we need to do that here. And I don't want to use family friendly as the reason why we do it, because adults deserve to have their places too. And it would seem like a place that serves food, and again, the tavern idea would be a terrific alternative for adults as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. This has been a great discussion from the commission. Any additional comments? I have a few questions myself. All right. I, again, appreciate the discussion, very robust discussion, very meaningful discussion. I hate to make assumptions, but I'm going to make a couple. I think what we're trying to do is limit the things that follow in the original definition beyond taverns, and we're associating taverns with those things to try to make a distinction to keep those things out. That would be my assumption. I think the distinction that we are trying to draw between a bar and a tavern is really quite frivolous. because I can get really full on nachos. And that would be a limited menu. I also worry about unintended consequences of establishing a definition such as this. If like a Topgolf or a Dave & Buster's and others would come to town and they only have limited offering in terms of their food, and then they get tripped up into something like this, and we have to run ourselves into a wall again to try to figure out how to allow them. So I think that I understand possibly what that intent may be from the city council in terms of we don't want to really get into the things that follow in that sentence after taverns. But to me, this isn't the right way to go about doing it. Because it's really hard for me to base that distinction around what is a limited and not limited menu. And if it's appetizers and not appetizers, that's okay. But again, that to me, you're starting from the wrong place regardless what's written in the law. So I have a hard time with this. I think it doesn't really accomplish what we want it to accomplish. And I think you can go to a tavern and get rowdy, or you can go to a bar, get rowdy, or you can go to Denny's and get rowdy. Or Chuck E. Cheese. They serve beer at Chuck E. Cheese now. So those are all things I think that we just have to consider in terms of what it is we're actually trying to accomplish here, and perhaps there's better, more efficient ways to go about doing that. So I'll get off my soapbox, and I would be happy to entertain a motion.
All right, I'll do it. Based upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move to forward a negative recommendation to the City Council for the proposed amendments to all or some of the amendments to Title 19 based on the following findings, which are none, but based on it doesn't feel to be consistent with, it's the verbiage is not right.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Sprosty Burns. Do we have a second?
I would second the negative.
We have a second from Commissioner Mangum. Do we have any additional discussion on the matter? Hearing none, go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, so we'll go through and do the roll call. Is that what we need to do to make sure? So we have a nay from Commissioner Wilden and Commissioner Mann. And everyone else, Commissioner Hill, I don't believe I heard you, correct?
I had said yes, but I'll go ahead and change that to a nay. So,
So you're not in favor of the motion?
and we're looking at option 1.
Okay.
Is that the one we're,
No, she motioned to not move it forward, not
so
move forward
with
recommendation.
option 2? So I will say a nay on option 2.
Okay, so you are also a nay, and Commissioner Mangum was a yay, Commissioner Kilgore is a yay, and I'm also a yay, and I would assume Commissioner Sprosty Burns is also a yay.
Yeah,
Correct?
correct.
Awesome. Would those that voted no like to add any additional comments?
I think I'm in favor of everything. It's just that I'm quite confused by the word tavern and what are the actions that they're trying to avoid. I think we, by just saying that limited food and can't be under the age of 21, that doesn't really accomplish what I think the city is trying to accomplish. And so I think they need to be more specific in the specific actions that they're trying to avoid. That would help me.
Right. Thank you, Commissioner Mangum. Commissioner Wilden?
Yeah, I anticipate that the city tried to align this with the state code, and this is probably as close as we're going to get to what I'd like to see happen. I don't know if they're going to get any closer. I think it's a very touchy area and a difficult one, and I think they did good. I don't think we'll get better.
Thank you. Commissioner Mann, would you like to add anything to your vote?
I have no further comment.
Awesome. And Commissioner Hill, would you like to add anything to your no vote?
Yes, really good discussion, and I would agree with the comments that have been made about the bars. Not knowing what city council wants to do, but getting an inclination from Sarah that this is a direction they want to go. I'm in support of kind of the direction that city council has given a nod to us to move forward with.
Awesome. Thank you, Commissioner Hill. That's all clear for you guys then on the recording side and minute side? Awesome. Who knew we could talk about two definitions for 30 minutes? All right. we're going to go ahead and move on to the business items on this evening's agenda. The first item up is City Hall and Library Site Plan located at 319 South Saratoga Road, City.
Okay, yes, so this is for the new City Hall. This is a site plan. Just like any other building that comes into the city, City Hall does have to go through the site plan approval process, which means it comes to Planning Commission for a recommendation, and it goes to City Council for approval. For the record, this is located just east of Patriot Park, north of our our police station and courthouse, and it's just west of Inlet Park. It's on Saratoga Road. It's currently zoned civic and institutional. That's the IC zone. The property, let's go here to the site plan. So you can see this is the layout of the site plan. It's a 76,000 square foot building. There are 169 parking stalls, which equates out to about 2.2 parking stalls per 1,000 square feet. The site plan is proposing 6 ADA stalls, 2 of those being van accessible. In the event that overflow parking is needed, this is adjacent to Patriot Park, so there's more than enough overflow parking that could also accommodate larger numbers in the event that that's needed. On the site plan here, you could see the main entrance to the building would be on the south west corner. There is a book drop on the northeast corner that's kind of a roundabout that you can see there, which would make it so easy access for those that are dropping their books off, and they don't have to go through the main parking lot, and it would have direct access off of Saratoga Road there. Let's see here, as far as the parking goes, it does meet our standards. We'll get into the building a little bit here later. Landscaping wise, the building meets our code. It has all the parking islands required. It's going to be adjacent to future expansions of Patriot Park as well as a future amphitheater. So it will have plenty of green space around it, but it does meet our code requirements as far as landscaping percentage. These are the proposed elevations for the building. You can see these are the west and south elevations. And so the way that the building's done is it's kind of 2 segments. There's the main building, and then there's the library kind of branches off. You can see that on here. It kind of makes an L shape, so the northwest corner is the library. And so that's what you're seeing here on these smaller elevations, like the northeast elevation and the southwest elevation. It's only 1 story on that part of the building. But the elevations, as far as meeting our code, there are, it has the requisite number of material changes and texture changes, as well as adequate windows, which our code requires. And in fact, it well exceeds that. And then here's kind of another angle. This is looking from the east, and you can see in the middle there would be kind of where the book drop would be located. And then that's the north elevation, and again, those 2 on the bottom there are kind of showing that library wing of the building. Here's some renderings to kind of better help you visualize that. This is looking from the south to the north to where the main entrance would be. And then these are some renderings at the top there you see looking from the north. And then in the bottom left, that's looking from the west. And then on the bottom right-hand side there, that's looking from the east. Let's see. Staff does recommend approval of this. It does. There are a few things. If you read through your staff report, you'll see there are a couple of can complies, and so those items are going to be addressed with the building set. so the set that will be used for construction of the building, and so they will address those red lines. But as far, staff has no concerns, and we recommend that this be approved.
Awesome. Thanks for the great presentation this evening. We'll turn it over to the commission for comments. Commissioner Hill.
Thank you, Austin. I think the concerns that I had, you addressed. There are quite a few can comply as we sit right now. As I went through that area, lighting, the site plan, building height, tree base circumference, drip lines, parking, trip generations, double roll parking, the hydraulics and storm drains. We talked 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago about the service yard and kind of the barriers and all of those types of things there. I guess we could go very specifically down that, but my thought is we're dealing with the city, and you guys are the ones that really, make sure that things are in compliance. Outside of making some changes to the code that said that it would go to city council, changes to the code, you feel very comfortable that all the can complies will comply. I guess that would be my question.
Yeah, I feel confident that those will all be addressed within the time frame. So I failed to mention at the beginning, we're anticipating construction beginning here in 2024 with a completion date, goal of November 2025. So we want to stay on track and we want to make sure everything's done right. And so we're working with, a contractor that's drawn up these plans, and we'll make sure that, those things get done.
Great. One last question is, I think we have groundbreaking coming up, and so maybe if we could get into the record when that's going to happen so that the member of the Planning Commission could be there and the public that are listening.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's actually Monday, November 18th is the initial groundbreaking to do some of the, March.
I was thinking.
Did I say May?
I have it on the calendar
March.
Sooner than November.
Yes, just in a few days.
And everybody's invited. You're welcome to come to that. The entire city is welcome to come to that.
My brain was saying March, but my mouth was not.
Let me look at my calendar and I will tell you.
4 o'clock.
Yeah, 4 p.m. And then it's just happening right across from the public safety building.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Facebook page if you would like more information. There's a few activities happening with that. I just don't recall what they are.
And just to add also for the record, like there will be some community engagement events July 31st and August 1st. And previously, we did hold an open house here at the current City Hall on the 21st here in this chamber. And everyone was able to come and kind of see the materials and things like that. So it was a good event.
Thank you, Chair. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Kilgore.
So, yeah, I had a lot of, this site plan it's a good thing it wasn't one of the developers who sent it in with all these can complies, because it just, it took me forever to get through it all. But, as Commissioner Hill said that, it is a city, but still, do we really give the city a pass? Mainly because this is an administrative, process. So if it were legislative, well, site plan wouldn't be legislative, but if it were legislative, I wouldn't care as much. But because it is administrative, there are some questions I did want to ask. There's on the building height, it says that the code is being amended to 75 feet. Did we do that?
We have, it has come through the planning commission already, so.
I don't remember. Okay, and is that because of the zone?
Right, so the zone height was 50 feet, so it wasn't going to allow this building, and we did bring that to Planning Commission at last meeting, and it will go to City Council on the same night that the site plan goes to City Council. However, because it's come through Planning Commission, it's considered pending ordinance.
Okay, I totally forgot about, I don't even remember 75 feet. Okay. And then most of the other ones are not that important. But I did have, so with the parking standards and needs, do we anticipate any issues with that one?
We have public safety right in the same parking lot, and then we also have Patriot Park. And so there's plenty of parking in addition to what you're seeing on the site plan.
Okay, all right, that's good. Okay, and then also, any issues anticipated for adding the landscaped islands in the parking area? Because that was something that was a red,
That's not a concern. We've addressed that with the consultant.
you did, okay. And the required minimum parking, right?
And there, for this use, there actually isn't a requirement that's determined by the land use authority.
Okay, all right. Expectations of final. Now, what about the final hydraulic and hydrological storm drain reports? Any issues anticipated with that?
Is it going? Okay. Yeah, so those are coming. We have been in coordination with the engineer on those. It's kind of exciting. There aren't concerns with it. We just need it. We've gone through several reviews with them on their storm drainage. One thing that's pretty neat is we have a new outfall for this area. So there is a new storm drain outfall that will cross Saratoga Road and it'll go out to the lake. And the proximity of this site to the lake, it's so close that we're just not concerned, but we do need it. It's a requirement for them to produce that, and but without that, we still have been working with them on the pipe sizes, the outfall, everything, and it's good. We have a new treatment device that will be treating the stormwater near Inlet Park. So yeah, this isn't just flowing out to the lake. It'll all be treated. Our city will be maintaining that treatment device. And so it keeps, our outflows from storm drainage, what we're putting into the lake, clean, to that level of treatment at least.
Okay, thank you. There's some questions about concerning the screening for service yards, waste removal areas, loading docks, trucking, parking, and utility areas. Would those address with the changes that
That's also a code amendment, but just like the height, and that's going to city council.
Okay, so that's the discussion we had last week or last meeting, right? And was that
Which
for the
ones?
screening and all that?
Oh, yes, it
Yeah.
is. That's for you can see it in the bottom right corner. That's where the pickup, book drop-off and recreation equipment pickup, but there's also trash removal here, and the city will also receive deliveries here, and then that's separate and away from the parking lot for the public.
Okay. And then another code was, I just wanted to, will the gates be opaque metal?
They will meet the code. We have confirmed that.
Oh,
So the company we're using knows that we need to meet the code on that.
Okay. And then I think the last question I had was about the signage. So again, any issues anticipated with the signage requirements?
We haven't seen any signage at this point in time, and when we do, we'll review that against the code.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Monument sign, okay.
And typical procedure is a sign plan would go through its own approval process apart from the site plan. So every like if a commercial business came in, they would still have to submit a formal site plan.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner Sprosty Burns.
Is any of this building planning on being leased out by the city, or is this all going to remain city utilized?
There's a can I address that? Okay, I'll let Owen address that.
Open up. Hi, Commissioners. Owen Jackson, Assistant City Manager. Yes, we are currently discussing with the county, providing county services at this building as well for a certain period of time. Part of the reason why we're building it the size that we are is for future expansion for the city when we need it, but we don't need that square footage today. So yes, we are working for another civic use to be in there for temporary, and we don't have a lease or any contract in place right now. But yes, there is plan to have it leased out to another government entity.
Okay. And then with the parking, we're going to go back to parking again. We all love it so much. You said 169 stalls.
Correct.
That's 2.2 per 1,000 square foot of the building, which is extremely low compared to every other land use in the city, right? We have tattoo shops have 4 stalls per 1,000 square foot.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so civic uses do not have a parking requirement in our code. So if you go look at the table, you'll notice that there is nothing there. And then if you continue reading on, you'll see there's a clause that says that subject to approval by the land use authority. So that'll be depending on the use, the way that parking is generally done is it's based on the uses that are inside the building. So heavier uses will have more parking, whereas something that may not have as much traffic would have lower amounts of parking. And so the parking is really, per our code, is up to the discretion of the city council. And as mentioned earlier, we do have neighboring city parking nearby, so at the Patriot Park as well as at the police station.
Much parking that's on the north side of the court and police facility was actually intended for this facility, but we installed it with that other facility since it was the entrance. So we did do a little additional parking on that facility to accommodate future expansion, plus the park, Patriot Park. And future expansions of Patriot Park will have additional parking.
Yeah, I mean, I have some concerns about the parking. I'm sorry, everyone. This 2.2 per 1,000 square foot, I mean, this is on the super low end, right? And then we're considering leasing it out to county. And how much control do you have once the county takes that lease?
What do you mean control?
So like if the county says, okay, we're going to lease X amount of square feet from you, and then do they get to say what they're bringing in for that space first before you make that agreement?
Yeah, we would make sure. So for example, right now it's county health, and then there's some other services such as county recorder, assessor, surveyor, so really county health is probably the bigger use there. But the other uses are not there 5 days a week. They're only going to be there certain days of the week. So right now they haven't given us what that will be. But yes, we have those conversations with them. It's not, they don't get to bring in whatever they want. It's very determined what services they want to bring in to that space.
So if they bring in the county health department, are they going to move their WIC office over?
My understanding is yes, that's their intent.
So this parking will not be adequate for that amount of people, right? Like you think about those WIC offices and how many people are coming and going. They hold classes, they hold group events. And I understand we have a lot of surrounding parking, but I have also already been to Patriot Park when all of the parking was full. So I don't think it's adequate to say, oh, well, we have this surrounding parking when that surrounding parking already has a massive amount of usage and stress on it already. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So there's more parking. I just wanted to add to what you're saying as well.
Yeah, and if they move that WIC office, I'm surprised they haven't asked to bring a DCFS office in, right? And then that parking goes up, and then you consider state employees or county employee vehicles that remain on the parking lot overnight and are parked there for employee use. This level of parking, we hold businesses to a higher standard. We are constantly in here discussing parking, and I, as a citizen, of Saratoga am upset that we would propose a 2.2% parking. This is not what we hold the standard for others for. We need to really be addressing that within our own buildings as well. That's it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Sprosty Burns. Commissioner Mangum.
Thank you. Two quick questions. On changing the code from 50 feet to 75 feet, do we have any precedent where we have done that for private citizen coming in where they say, well, I'd like to build a higher building. Can we change the code?
We can, and we have in some situations. We also have the planned community zone, which allows that as well. We determine things like that through the community plan. Recently, we had that request for the cell tower to amend their planned community for additional height. So it's not unheard of. We have done it in some instances.
Okay, that's good to hear because I don't want to paint the picture like the city just gets whatever they want, but holds the community to the code. So thank you. The second, I was reviewing and looking over, and I noticed something that stuck out to me, and it's kind of silly, but I'll just mention it. I noticed that in level 1, 2, and 3 of the plans, it shows in the men's restroom in the center that there's just one toilet but 2 sinks, and I'm thinking maybe there should be a urinal in there that's left out.
That's good feedback. We'll pass that on.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mangum. Any other questions or comments?
No, thank you. That was all.
Go ahead, Dan.
All right. I had one thought I had on the parking is I think the timing of the peak hours for parking is different at a park versus this building. So I think that needs to be considered. I don't think 8 to 5 on Wednesday is a high peak hour for the park that is connected to this parking lot. So for what it's worth, I think that's an interesting part of the parking. I don't think the parking peak hours overlap with parks and the city building.
Do we have a guesstimate, or to use a horrible pun, the ballpark of how much would be available in consideration with the additional of the public safety building stalls that were pre-planned a little bit to connect to, plus the park? Like, worst case scenario, how many stalls are we throwing in total on that Wednesday afternoon at 2:30 p.m.?
I mean, there's hundreds of parking lot spaces connected to this parking lot with the park and with the police station. I'm not sure I could count them.
Yeah, I guess I'm not really asking you all to go on record to say this is what it is. I'm just wondering, like, if we had an estimate of what that might roughly round out to, just to give an idea or maybe alleviate some of the concerns, because obviously we all want to see a great product. I think we've heard some of the concerns as well about, what's good for these, not for me. And I think that is a little bit of a theme here on a couple of these exceptions that was worked through at the meeting. Unfortunately, I wasn't at, but also, and those are moving forward. But here we're saying, no, don't worry about it. Like, it's our building. We're just going to do it. And I worry about that a little bit. So if we had a way to start alleviating some of those concerns, or at least having a guesstimate to say, hey, we thought about this with the public safety building. We thought about this with Patriot Park. And as a cohesive unit, this is, what is available. I think that might help. I jumped out of turn, so I'm going to go back to some, unless did you have a comment?
I would like to add a couple things. So one, our code does allow for shared parking. And so in the event that we did have a use, we saw this on the office warehouse building that's just off of Pioneer Crossing. They have different uses at different times of day. And so they can work out a shared parking agreement where, maybe for one, if they were both to be at the building at the same time, they may not have enough parking, but because of the shared parking agreement, that works out. And so that's, you could kind of look at it that way, that the surrounding uses could be shared parking. The other thing is what's not shown here and what you won't see if you look at a city map right now is that Patriot Park is going to be expanded and there are additional parking spots built in the future.
Yeah, that's another good addition to that. So thank you. Commissioner Kilgore, we'll go to you. You were next.
You showed there was an amphitheater. What's the anticipated use for that amphitheater?
If you've seen the Ogden Amphitheater, that's the vision, but we have no plans or no definitive timing on that, or obviously that would be something we'd have to plan, additional parking, et cetera. So.
Yeah, I guess one of the things I was thinking of is in Orem, their civic center also has a really nice stage, a performance area, and I don't know if we'll have that in Saratoga Springs. Maybe we will at some point, and maybe not necessarily at this location, but although it does make sense, it's the zoning. And my daughter, when she was doing ballet, they had Nutcracker performance there every year, and they had shared parking as well. Of course, during the day, the parking's mostly empty, but during those performances, and it'd be for several nights, the parking was all over the place. I mean, on the streets, they did have some shared parking with a fast food store or fast food restaurant that was next to it. But again, it was just all over the place. And so, that's probably a decade or more down the road, but I could understand, some of the comments made is that in the future, or are we really planning for the future? I guess maybe with of course we're planning for the future, but are we really anticipating those types of possible uses, especially if this becomes a place where we do have things like performance centers and such? And so again, it's not the same time as during the park use, but still, it's not so much that we have adequate parking every day or during the weekdays. It's just that, do we have adequate parking when we need it? So it may be just 3 days out of the year, but is that something that we could actually anticipate? Or maybe if it's just 3 days a year, it doesn't matter. It's really not that big a deal. But I guess that's the part of the concerns I had, because again, we did have issues in the past with other more regulated applicants, and so I just want to make sure that saying that, well, we don't really have a standard for civic, that's not going to get us into some kind of a bind later. That's all. So that's part of the comment I want to make.
Thanks, Commissioner Kilgore. We'll go to Commissioner Mann next.
Thank you. I just want to make a comment. I have lived right next to Patriot Park for the past 3.5 years, and I walk that park almost every day. 95% of the time, possibly more, parking is nearly completely empty and available. I would say that there are very few times that the parking lot is even partially full, even a third of the way full. So I would say that from my experience, even if we did have a busy day at our city hall, there is more than sufficient parking with Patriot Park, 95+% of the time.
That's great insight. Thank you, Commissioner Mann. Anything else you'd like to add?
Nope, that's all for me.
All right, thank you. We'll go back to Commissioner Esprosti Burns.
I just wanted to publicly comment that WIC is open until 7 p.m. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Esprosti Burns. Again, good insight as well to get a complete picture. One question I had, we know what we know. We have a comparable parking lot outside right here, right now. And as you all would have better perspective from staff and the incoming and outgoing traffic throughout the day, what's your general assessment versus the size of a parking lot we have out here? And do we know how many stalls it is out there?
The one planned is bigger, but I don't have staff would have to go count.
And best guesstimate as to what the parking lot looks like Monday through Friday, 8 to 5?
Most of our city vehicles leave for the day. Most of those are building officials, et cetera. They go out to do their jobs. Leaving parking for our constituents, mostly library visitors, to be honest. And after that, there is some staff parking, but we obviously encourage our staff to park on the edges or far out. So, similar with this, we could have them park across at the court and police facility. So staff parking for that facility is on the west side of the building anyway. So there's a lot of different options we can look at for that, but mostly this building, at least the parking lot here to our west is fairly open for our constituents to come.
Thanks.
But that's just anecdotal based on what I see. So.
Also good insight. Thank you. Okay, any other additional comments or questions from members of the commission? Hearing none, I would be happy to entertain a motion.
I'd go ahead and make a recommendation. I would recommend option A1. I move that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation for approval of the requested site plan for City Hall and the library located at 319 South Saratoga Road with the findings and conditions in the staff report, which include 2 findings and 5 conditions.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any additional discussion on the matter? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye, nay.
Awesome. Thank you, Commissioner Sprosty Burns. We have one no vote from Commissioner Sprosty Burns. If I heard that all correctly, everyone else was a yay. Thank you. Commissioner Sprosty Burns, would you like to add additional comment to your vote?
I really feel the city should be holding to a higher standard on the parking.
Thank you, Commissioner Sprosty Burns. Well said. And thank you, everyone, for another good discussion on business item number 1. We'll go ahead and move to business item number 2. This is the Bow Time Pub and Grub site plan located at 1422 North Redwood Road. Tim Ryan as the applicant.
Okay, this has been in the works for a long time. There was actually a different site just north of this approved previously, and then the applicant and the landowner had different negotiations, and so you're seeing a new plan, and this also resulted in the need for a code amendment based on some confusing language in our code. So that's been cleared up, and now you're seeing the site plan for Bow Time. This is the proposed site. It's a standalone building with that meets the required parking and the other requirements in the code. And here's the landscape plan and the elevations. And now I would like to turn it over to you for discussion and motion.
Thank you, Director Carroll. Is the applicant present this evening or representative of the applicant? Would you like to add anything to the presentation this evening? We've seen you before. Yep. We're long-lost cousins sharing a last name somewhere along the way. Right. All right, I will open it up to the commission for comments or questions, and then if you are here, applicant, and there are questions, we'd invite you up as well at the appropriate time. Any questions or comments from the commission? Commissioner Kilgore.
There's a can comply with the grading and drainage and secondary water system and water shares dedication. Any issues expected with the with this metric or requirement?
No, we're not expecting any issues. They'll be required to meet that.
Okay. I was actually going to ask the applicant if there's any issues anticipated as far as the dedication of the water shares.
Would you, Mr. Ryan, would you mind coming forward? So if you'll do it for us, again, hopefully maybe one more time, state your name and address for the record, and then if you don't mind addressing the question posed by Commissioner Barney, I'm sure he'd be happy to repeat that.
Sure, thank you. Tim Ryan, 3687 Cove Point Drive, Salt Lake City. Here representing my commercial property at 1422 North Redwood Road. And yes,
Okay, yeah, there's just a can comply. Since it's administrative, I just want to make sure that we go through all these and just at least address whether you anticipate any issues. There's a can comply for grading and drainage, as far as also dedication of water shares, and just wondering if you anticipate any issues with that.
I do not. I don't know if a more robust comment would be from our architect, that's here, but I think it's been reviewed through the process, all of the drainage and detention, so on and so forth at that site.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's good. I just want to get it on the record. And then, again, being in a administrative process, do you agree to comply with all the conditions in the city staff planning packet?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Do we have any other questions or comments from the commission? Hearing none, I would be happy to entertain a motion.
I'll make one. I move that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation for approval of the requested site plan for About Time Pub and Grub located at 1422 North Redwood Road with the findings and conditions listed in the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Sprosty Burns. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Mann. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any additional discussion on the matter? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we got one unanimous this evening. Thank you, Mr. Ryan, for your application, and thanks for being here again with us this evening. We appreciate you, and thank you to the staff as well as for the city working through all these.
Yep, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, we're moving on to business item number 3, which is approval of the meeting minutes from February 22nd, 2024.
I move to approve the minutes for the Planning Commission meeting held on 22nd of February, 2024.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. We have a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Sprosty Burns. We have a second. Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We're on to reports. Any additional comments from commissioners this evening?
Chair, I'd like to report on a meeting that was held March 4th, which was a Monday, that Virginia and I were able to represent the Planning Commission with MAG, and that was talking about transportation. We had members of the city council, the mayor was there, city manager Ken was there. We had a lot of people representing. And the intent of that meeting was to have representatives from UDOT and from UTA, the transportation, the bus lines, and talking about how we're concerned that people don't know how quickly we are growing and how transportation is becoming gridlocked even at our stage here. And we had a lot of information that was brought forth. It was great. Right now, we do not have bus lines. And we've gotten to a point where, because of that, families are buying cars for kids to go to school and work, and we're not taking care of our resources the way we need to, but it's because we don't have bus lines in our community. And so we got that message across to Utah Transit Authority. We talked a whole lot about the need for a west to east connection, whether that be light rail or whether that be buses that have dedicated lanes on Pioneer Crossing. And we know we've run out of room to do that. We'd be down to one lane and a bus lane. And so they talked about some alternatives. I guess the thing that I'd like to share with the commission is that I think Mark did a very, very good job of sharing how quickly we are going to be doubling our population. It will be by 2040, we will have doubled our population. And right now, Lehigh, Saratoga Springs, and Eagle Mountain are about a third of the county's population. They anticipate in the very near future, probably 20 years out, it will be an even split on the east side and the west side. And we just do not have transportation right now. And so UDOT took that back. They walked away and says, yeah, we knew you were growing, but not at that rate. And there are state monies that have been set aside for local enhancements coming down the pike, but we're going to need UDOT money to do the things we need to. We talked a little bit about Mountain View, the corridor going up to kind of up to the Draper area, but all that's just going to feed back down here, and with no outlet, what we have today in Gridlot is going to be much more extended. So, Virginia, any other thoughts that you might have picked up?
Oh, I think you just put it together very well. Yeah, it was a fabulous meeting, and I think that UDOT had a good takeaway of where we actually are versus where they thought that we were when they came into that meeting.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that Tippy brought forward is the discussions we've been having on the city center, right across from Fat Cats and that whole area, and how the state is very much aware of Corey Wright going out, and we're going to have that looking a lot like Bangerter, because we're going to have overpasses and underpasses, so we don't have congestion. But we're still looking at many, many years from that perspective. And then one last piece that we did bring forward, and we talked about this as we were looking at the properties that are going across the Jordan River out, Pony Express. There's a desire to punch out from Pony Express all the way over, if I'm not mistaken, to the freeway, if we can, to give some relief off of Pioneer Crossing. And if you've gone that way, you can see that there's rearranging of roads there and widening once you get past 2300. So some really good things happening, but it's not going to be happening soon enough, think, for the growth that we're experiencing. But I just wanted to bring you up to speed on that, because lots of people are asking us as planning commissioners, what are we doing? And we're doing a lot, but you've got to get the ear of the state. And with the population in Salt Lake County, that's where a lot of the focus gets, and not as far as we are. So I just thought I'd share that and bring everybody up to speed.
Thanks, Commissioner Hill. That's an excellent report. Commissioner Mann, anything you'd like to add? You were in it as well.
No, he did a fabulous job of just wrapping up what that conversation consisted of. It was a very beneficial conversation, and like I said, I think that UDOT left with a more comprehensive view of the rate that our city is growing. Our city manager did a fabulous job representing our population growth and our needs and our future needs, discussing the downtown Saratoga area, and potential solutions of various measures of which UDOT may be able to help relieve the traffic situation.
Great, thank you. Dan, did you have something you'd like to add?
Yeah, just real quick. That sounded like a neat meeting. One thing I wanted to add is, and I don't know if they talked about this, but we've been working with UTA, and they've been good to work with us on a park and ride that is actually, you're aware of that one? It's happening. We went to a meeting. They're starting design on that. That'll be right south or north of this new city hall. So just going north there, crossing the river, right there by the RC park, we'll have a nice, pretty big park and ride. And one thing that's nice about that is they're working with us on the traffic signal that we need there. They're pretty expensive, and yeah, they're working with us to install that as part of their project. So that's helpful.
Of Pony Express, if I'm not.
Yeah, it's right off of Pony.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we talked a lot about park and rides. We've got to do that, but we've got to have express lanes, because if you're in a bus in normal traffic, it doesn't save you any time. And for many people, it's not convenient, sitting on a bus and waiting in traffic. So they've got to come up with those express lanes. And then they talk quite a bit about just a light rail. With the growth of Eagle Mountain, light rail has got to be a solution. They're aware of that. The last light rail that went in east and west, I think, was, is it South Jordan, in that area? And that's when they had some money to do that. But they don't have that kind of money at this particular time. So I think, Dan, thank you for sharing some lights on that piece.
At least it's something. And
Well, that's what we said with the bus lines. Give us some bus lines right now, because you got to build it for people to get used to using it. And right now we have none, and nobody uses it, and it could take 4 or 5 years to get used to having bus lines, because everybody has cars. So.
All right, appreciate that discussion. And you said it was hosted by MAG, is that correct? Mountain Association of Governments? And then is there any additional follow-up that will take place as a result of the meeting?
This was just an informational to give our side of the story. There are meetings going on with representatives from the city in the county area, so those are happening all along. I think we just had a little more opportunity to send a few more people because we were telling our story as compared to being a part of a group that would be, that staff is doing that primarily.
I feel like we're being heard. This is a loaded question, so don't go on record with it. But it's East versus West in a lot of different areas, and Mountain Land Association of Governments is likely no different because that's where population centers were in the county. So do you feel as if that messaging is starting to resonate a bit more in terms of the needs of the west side with organizations like MAG?
It is for sure. They, like any government entity, have to make decisions on where the funding goes and what's the highest priority. And, our goal is to be heard and to make sure that we're being considered in those priorities. And we are. There was some funding pulled, and then, where does that put us with the priorities and things like that. But that's definitely our goal as a city, is to be on the list of priorities.
You handled that very well. Thank you. Director Carroll. This is the world I live in as well, right? And so it's just understanding of those funding streams and where they come from is important, I think, for us to do our job appropriately as well from the commission standpoint. So thank you. Any other additional comments from members of the commission? I just want to thank, once again, Commissioner Kilgore for pinch hitting in my absence at our last meeting. Thank you, Ken, for being able to do that. Much obliged, as always. We'll move now to the director's report.
Great. There was a council meeting held just 2 nights ago, so March 12th, and I wanted to update you on the items that were heard there. The Sierra Estates development is the one next to Neptune Park. It has one phase left just to the east of Neptune Park. There's vacant ground, and the MDA was set to expire, and the applicant requested a 2-year extension to allow them to finish up that piece, and that was granted. And then the Wildflower Village Plan 5 and the 4th Community Plan Amendment that you all saw, you did have a positive recommendation. However, when the council saw that, they voted no on that. So they denied that Village Plan 5. It's the one with the office warehouse right off of Mountain View Corridor, just west of Mountain View Corridor. It's part of the Wildflower development, but this phase had the commercial and office warehouse, and the forward with office warehouse. The council did not want to approve it due to the scale of the buildings and the amount of grading. Like, there was a proposal for 25-foot walls and cuts, and then the council's concern was that the 25 feet of fill to raise the site, to raise the east end of the site, in addition to the building height, which would be 40 feet, would make that 65 feet, and that would be, and then the buildings were proposed to be about 130,000 square feet. The concern was the visibility scale, and they denied that request. And then the Jacobs Ranch IADU map amendment, they also had similar concerns that were expressed here. However, that was approved. And then your next meeting is scheduled for March 28th, and looks like we'll have a few items. So,
thank you. Ken, we'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, just wanted, as a reminder, I think you've already received an invitation by email, but we are having our Breakfast with Planners event on this next Thursday at 8:30 in the morning. This one will be held at the Public Safety Building Community Room. So we hope, if you're able, you can come spend a couple hours or an hour and a half with us there. And it's always a good event. We enjoy doing that. We have enjoyed in the past doing it at the Talons Cove facility, but that has become unavailable to us. So we're going to cram in a little bit in that community room, but we'll have a good event.
Thank you. Yeah, those have always been, this would be what, the fourth or fifth one now, or?
Something like that.
Those have always been good events. Appreciate you doing that as well and touching base. Okay, anything else? I think we're there. Happy to, can't remember, where are your public settings? We got to have a motion to adjourn, or no? Yeah, right? Yeah, I think we do. So happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
We've literally never done this.
We've never done that? We don't have to do it? No? All right, because on the school board, I have to get a motion to adjourn, but here I don't. So I'm getting my lines crossed. Too many volunteer opportunities. Okay, so appreciate everyone being here. We are adjourned for the evening at 7:22 p.m.